Just want to jump right into it today, dude. I have some juicy topics today that you will be surprised that I have.
Interesting. I have some good stuff. I tried to condense stuff from the last 2 weeks since we had guests on the show. So, what are more important? What's kind of interesting? So, I feel like I'm kind of catching up a little bit. There's one specific topic that I want to talk about longer, but I think there's stuff that takes more precedence. Some good stuff out there.
Pull up my... All right, we're getting into it. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead and wind down this. Pause the music real fast. Welcome to everybody to the 27th episode of the LFTG Podcast. We are back at it again with some more juicy topics. The last 2 weeks we've had some guests, but this week we're going to kind of be going over basically what's been happening over the last 2 weeks. We kind of just took some precedent. If you guys do not know, I am Refresh. Sitting next to me always kind of, but not really, is
Mohawk Mike. Excited for another incredible week of esports news.
I am stupid hype for this. If you guys do not know how this show works, typically, obviously when we don't have a guest, we have the Quickscope. The show is broken down into 3 segments. We have the Quickscope, which is 2-minute conversations, just kind of mini pieces, just more of like an info. Hey, this is what's going on. What do you think? Okay, move on. And then we have the Reload, which is our second segment. It's more of a long-form conversation about the event, how it affects the esports industry. That's also where we talk about our CDL pick'ems, and obviously when Overwatch League and other structured leagues start back up again, we're going to be filling up the Reload with predictions and topics. And last but not least, upcoming events that we'll be watching over the weekend, where you can find the events, just general info about the events. But let's get started about something that you typically bring up. PUBG, over these last 2 weeks, had its global championship. It was an official LAN, and it was pretty interesting to watch. There was a couple of moments, especially involving vehicles at the bottom of a cliff, that was very interesting. There was like 6 or 7 Jeeps piled up, and some grenades came flying down and blew up pretty much a whole team. But congratulations to Sonic Esports. If you guys did not know, the PUBG Global Championship was out of 32 teams that were invited, and they all flew to, where was it again? Was it
Dubai?
Yeah, it was
Dubai,
Abu Dhabi, right?
Previously. Yeah.
They all flew in. They all played on land, so no internet connection issues there. And the team that won took home a $1.3 million prize pool. So good looks by Team Sonics. It was pretty interesting. I wasn't able to catch the whole event. I was able to catch a little bit of the finals. Overall, pretty good production. A little bit better from PUBG than I would have thought. So it's pretty interesting to see if this is an esport that's going to be kind of bouncing back, or if it's one that's kind of going to remain hidden, because it's been remain hidden for 2 years now, it seems like.
Yeah, I think viewership is going to go up. Obviously, there was the whole thing we talked about it before with like India, where the game was previously, it was like banned, like you couldn't download it anymore, you couldn't play it anymore. They thought it was like an actual like health crisis that so many people were playing it. But now that that's kind of like washed over, I think that viewership is going to grow. I think the player retention is already there. You also, I mean, there's other competitors. You have, was it Free Fire? And there's like there's other mobile based, battle royale games that are out there. But I think that PUBG is around to stay. Obviously, with the World Championships have a good showing, they're going to be there. And with the, I don't know if a lot of people have kind of tuned into it or kind of catched it, but Trovo, which is this new streaming platform, is primarily focused on mobile.
Yep.
So whereas before, if you would go to like Twitch or even like YouTube and you're trying to like dig through and find content, like Trovo seems like it's going to be the leading force. And Trovo is doing a lot of big things. They're making some rumors in the scene, so we'll see how that'll affect not just mobile gaming, but also live streaming going forward.
I'm interested to see if it impacts that particular market or if it kind of starts to branch out, because that market is a little bit different. The only streaming site, coincidentally enough, that I've seen mobile games like really pop off is YouTube. That's kind of like a hidden underground community that's way bigger than you think it is on YouTube, like YouTube live streaming. There's mobile games are like, I've seen some successful mobile streamers now that I've been streaming to YouTube. But let's get on to a little bit of controversy that we're getting into here. I don't know if you saw this, but on March 26th, it was March 26th, Borax, the professional Dota 2 player, will be missing the Singapore major after allegedly soliciting prostitution. So this player has confirmed on March 26th, been arrested, and will miss this event. They haven't released too much. This is something that you and I have kind of talked about, like being able to maintain yourself as an esports player and how it's a very professional environment. And I think this is an example where people just kind of forget, man, that these are real people. They're real. There's real mistakes to be made. I don't usually like to highlight something like this, but I think Borax is a very talented player, and missing a major because of a real world action that you're participating in is, I mean, if I was an esports org owner, I would not bring this player back. However, so far his organization is looking at reinstating him once the sentence has been given. So I don't know. What
This is a weird one. This is a weird one. We've seen it happen multiple times before, where players have to miss a game. Maybe it's like the passing of a loved one, or, maybe some other like impactful, life event happens, but never like, I'm going to call it major crime. I mean, here's the thing. Without knowing a lot about the situation, like if they're accused and they were arrested, like obviously like this is a PR nightmare, right? Like you've got to try and cover this up. You want to, as an organization, you want to help that player as much as you can. Right. At the same time, there's only so much you can do. Like if they that soliciting prostitution is something that, it's never going to look good. It's never going to work out.
Right.
And that's the thing is like, how do you kind of, turn this into a positive? How are you going to keep this player? Or, like you said, like if it just straight up drop them,
Yeah, that's something that I mean, as if I was an org owner, that's something that I would be considering at the moment, just because like bad PR is one, like bad PR, someone saying something on Twitter is one thing, but going out and doing something like this is...
That's the dichotomy here, though. Like, yes, this is bad PR, but like, how many memes are going to come of this? How many in chat just spams are going to come of this? Obviously it's horrible. Nobody would endorse this, but there's going to be so much publicity off of this just from the memes alone.
That's true. I'm interested to see what they'll do. We'll go ahead and move on. This is something that we kind of alluded at last week when we were talking about the CDL and people working in the esports world in general. But Blizzard and Activision, their esports division, 150 people, has recently been laid off. So go ahead and talk to me about it.
Yeah, we touched on this briefly, but I wanted to like give a chance to kind of like come back and talk on it a little bit more. So we already know, like, COD, the CDL league right now is operating. It's all remote. They were talking about doing a bubble, but they're up and running, making things happen. It's a great show. Overwatch League, they're talking about possibly doing a player bubble with teams, North American teams going to Hawaii and having their bubble there, so they'd have better playing against teams that are in Asia. But there's also discussions of like Overwatch League moving away from the homesteads,
right?
Maybe being more online based. I think that obviously like the pandemic has affected everything. Live events, you can't have spectators. It doesn't make sense to pump out that much money.
Right.
It's just, this is unfortunate because this is not the first time that we've seen Blizzard with these massive layoffs. And this time in particular, it's all related to esports. So I have a friend who was working at Blizzard, who was part of their networking team, that basically their whole job was to show up to these events and set up the network to ensure that broadcast and actual competition were ran smoothly. Because, there's not a lot of, LAN capability there.
Right.
And like the fact that this individual was released really indicates to me that they're not investing a lot with live events coming up. Like, obviously, the vaccine has been around. Like, we're seeing murmurs of in-person events coming back, end of summer, end of year, definitely 2022 from the way it's shaping up right now. But this is just proof positive that Blizzard is not looking into any of that. They want to hunker down, save as much money as possible, letting go of all these esports representatives. They're just going to run everything in-house with as small a team as they can.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think this is something pretty significant. It sucks to see these people obviously get laid off. It's just, I think it's just kind of cause of the times, though. I don't want I hope it's not Blizzard and Activision just trying to save money. People also got to realize they did kind of condense the management of the two esports. It's no longer Overwatch League operated by Overwatch League, and it's no longer CDL operated by CDL. There's a lot of back and forth now between the management and both companies focusing on both games. So I think it could be a product of the environment we're in right now and focusing more on online mid-season play and the two esports kind of merging management. I think that's could be where we're running into an issue. And maybe we can see a world where they start operating the Overwatch League as soon as CDL's done. And as soon as the Overwatch League is done, they start operating the CDL. So I think they're just kind of shooting for maybe one big all-star team to manage both of their esports, which is going to be a big task. And it sucks for the people that got laid off. But, I mean, we'll see what happens. I hope this doesn't hinder the esports in any way. I really like watching both of them. But we're going to go ahead and move on from that. Our time's kind of up. Is there anything you wanted to add before we move on, or...
I mean, we just have to wait and see how this shapes up. It's super unfortunate that that's more, individuals within the esports space that we see this a lot happen. And this is a topic I'll actually bring up later for just more general discussion. Mm-hmm. But it's like when you see these AAA or higher level esports organizations like Blizzard, well, now that you have 150 representatives that worked in that profession now all available for hire, it creates this weird kind of topple effect where it's somebody who's been working in the industry, climbing their way up the ladder to try and get a position that.
That's true.
Now you have the top collapse, and it kind of now these people
pushes
are next in line because they have the experience and that brand name behind them.
Yep.
It's unfortunate. So we're kind of again stifling newer talents or newer people coming in and getting those positions. It just sucks.
Yep. But let's go ahead and move on. We're going to talk about NFTs. This is a very hot topic recently everywhere. NFTs are starting to become pretty popular out of nowhere.
Yeah, this is one I had a conversation last week with somebody who was, obviously cryptocurrency is super hot right now. And, even talking with somebody, a representative from Pokemon, talking about the culture of trading card games and the popularity and nostalgia is back with Pokemon and, other trading card games. So we're seeing NFTs or, some people are speculating, it's just a trend because of cryptocurrency and there's a bubble and things are going to happen. But I'm not sure how many people are actually aware that the NBA has already embraced NFT technology and has really, really kind of put it up on center stage. So Dibs is a company that has partnered with the NBA. They're the ones who actually develop. They're basically, think of them just like digital trading cards. You don't actually get the physical trading card, but the way that NFT technology works is you buy into it, you get your pack, you get them randomly. Oh, cool. Now I have this player. That company, after setting up Top Shots, which is their trading NFT platform, is already estimated to be worth over $2 billion. $2 billion. Obviously, with a brand like the NBA behind it, it's gotten a ton of publicity. It's gotten tons of fanfare behind it. And, the discussion that I've kind of been having with other representatives, other individuals, is like, how soon until esports really embraces this? So not only do you have Epics, which is the company that was already doing digital trading cards for Counter-Strike, but also if you think about like the other applications. So like I could see Twitch implementing NFTs just for streamers. Could you imagine like going into a stream, you're a subscriber, and there's an NFT drop maybe every hour, maybe every 2 hours, maybe just randomly. So like you're in a person stream, you're watching, you're engaging, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, I got their NFT of them playing. Yeah, exactly. And then that becomes a whole trading economy within Twitch and even outside of that. And then to go even deeper is obviously game developers are going to be jumping on this ship, specifically with like skins or DLC items. I could see completely changing because, obviously, you have, for an esports organization, you have jerseys, you have shirts, you have mouse pads, there's all these things that you could buy, but like we haven't really seen anything new in the fandom, so to say. And I really think NFTs are going to break the mold. And it's something that obviously there's a bubble right now and the NBA is doing it. So I don't know if we need to do it, but like there's so much potential here, especially from a revenue standpoint for fans and spectators to get behind.
My only concern is you mentioned Twitch doing it. The first thing that came to my head is, wouldn't it be the actual content creator themselves to be the one to manage the NFTs and not Twitch? Because I think this is where NFTs become, as far as the realm of Twitch and live streaming, I think this is where it kind of becomes murky water. I like NFTs. I think they're pretty interesting. I totally get the idea of a digital collectible with a unique code and all that fun stuff. It creates an interesting market in certain areas. Especially if these NFTs are going to be sold and traded, my concern is Twitch coming up with a new terms and agreement and then making a bunch of money off of these people's content that are already providing them money by streaming on their platform. Do you think this could cause like a little bit of a worry, or do you think a player or a streamer and Twitch would have to come to an agreement as far as like the NFT world? Because the NBA, I'm assuming, are the ones managing the NBA NFTs going on. And there's probably some sort of agreement with the players and the NBA where if an NFT is sold, the player gets X amount of percentage, or maybe not, or it's just the team in the league have this. I feel like that's something that might end up becoming a very hard conversation to have in the future, is who's managing these NFTs and where is that money going if they are sold or traded.
This is something that we'll touch on more, but I feel like with my experience, like actually working in the tabletop industry and working for a card game publisher, like kind of knowing the inner workings of how licensing works. And you bring up a very good point as far as like the NBA, I guarantee the Players Association has their hands on the NFTs and there's discussion there. Short version, I would think that Twitch would handle it much like they do with the emotes, where it's like, okay, I went out, I've created my emotes, here's the artwork, approve it, and then they just hit okay. And then it would just be another step on top of that where it's like maybe Twitch, because they're providing the platform for the NFTs and trading and things like that, they're just like, okay, we're going to take a percentage of whatever it sells at. Like we're going to take a 10% cut of whatever they sell at. And think about it too, like bits.
Right.
What if bits are the actual currency to like, oh, this NFT is worth 100 bits. Well, now Twitch is fully involved because that's their own digital currency on the platform. Like there's so many different ways that could work out. But I think using this NBA model is proof enough. And you're just basically, okay, now instead of the NBA and their players, now it's DLC items or Twitch streamers or whatever it is. Like I think it's going to be a lot simpler. Yeah. And it's just a matter of if the streamer themselves does not agree with Twitch's terms and using that platform, then they would just create their own and create their own community for buying, selling, trading. Or do you latch on to Twitch basically?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'll be curious to see if more info comes out about that. But it is time. Our timer is actually broken.
Oh no.
Yeah. So
that's good because we get more time. We get more time to turn.
Yeah. So no timer. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the reload. First thing about the reload, I actually had to write down notes because this was a whole mess over the last 2 weeks. 100 Thieves and Nerd Street got in a little bit of a battle. They were in the middle of a tournament, and 100 Thieves was playing Immortals. Nerd Street wanted them to play on one specific server. 100T got a little bit upset because it wasn't really a favorable server from them, and they claimed that Nerd Street had used a different method of selecting a server than the matches previous before. But the whole server thing is an issue. Everyone knows, like, the higher ping, the worse connection you have. That's how long it takes for you to ping the server. That's why it's ping. So I wrote down some notes. 100 Thieves delayed the match by an hour over the server dispute with Nerd Street. Riot actually ended up getting involved and issue a statement with a ruling because of the delay, and after reviewing the conversation with video and witnesses, Frosty, which is the 100 Thieves Valorant coach, will be on a 3-month probation, and 100 Thieves will receive a $5,000 fine. Witnesses say Frosty threatened to use his social media following to get the public to side with 100 Thieves in this dispute. What is going on? Okay, so I did a lot of digging on this one. Hiko, you see Hiko on the stream. Hiko came out with a video and a statement, and basically releasing the 100 Thieves compound video of the argument itself, and it seemed pretty tame. However, the video was cut significantly. It didn't seem like the conversation was fully there. And Nerd Street, I feel like Nerd Street is very good, but Nerd Street has also had this type of issue before, specifically on rulings in their own tournament rules and their regulations. I know a couple of teams have had issues with them in the past, but for Riot to get involved, I think this was a pretty significant dispute. Obviously, it took social media like crazy. If 100 Thieves, if the Hoodie Org is involved, people are going to be talking about it. What do you think? I'm actually okay with this ruling. The only thing that I feel is a bit extreme, because $5,000 is nothing for 100 Thieves. Let's be real. I think the length of ban for Frosty, I think it's a bit excessive. 3 months is basically the rest of the season. I would be okay with a few weeks, but 3 months is a long time. And, a conversation like this, especially with tournament organizers, can get pretty heated, especially if a player or coach doesn't understand. I'm not saying Frosty should ever talk to an event organizer or a bracket runner, referee, whatever, like the tone he had. There's got to be some form of respect. Obviously, you're playing in their tournament at the end of the day. But I just think 3 months is a little bit excessive. What do you think about this?
I'm super conflicted over this one. I'll give you the standpoint first from a team perspective. Like, I truly respect 100 Thieves for standing up and be like, hey, listen, these are the tournament rules. These are the tournament bylines. Like, I've worked many events before where a player will come up to me and be like, hey, the rules state this. And you're like, you are 100% correct. And I want to reward that individual for having actually prepared for the event by sitting down, reading the tournament rules, reading everything, understanding, asking questions. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna make sure that everything, you're stating is held up and, to the point that it's written in the rules and everything. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, hell yeah. And, Frosty, threatening to use social media, getting everybody behind the team, getting all the fans. I'm like, this is great because, the organization, if the tournament isn't being ran properly, everybody should be vocal about it. Mm-hmm. And the public should be made aware, and the fans themselves, not necessarily just like, boycotting on behalf of 100 Thieves, but should be holding them to a higher standard. So I'm like, oh man, this is really cool to see. Those guys are on top of their shit. Obviously, like a tier 1 org, they know what they're doing. On the flip side of that, I have a lot of sympathy for the tournament organizers because I have been in situations before where players and teams, and specifically even coaches, have tried exploiting the rules. They've tried exploiting specific words within tournament rule sets. They've even gone as far as, kind of, I don't know how to put it, like almost like blackballing or blacklisting, like, hey, we didn't appreciate that you did that. So now we're going to go to our social media and we're going to tell everybody that you're a horrible organization. We should never play in your events again. Everybody should like, I've had that happen to me firsthand, and that's horrible to see. So I have a lot of sympathy for Nerd Street and like what's going on. And I understand an organization, you're always going to do whatever you can to get your players in a better position. So like, not, having the conversation about the server and like the way it was picked and an online tournament, like that's understandable. It's really hard for me to side one way or another here. Like you said, like Nerd Street, we've seen some things with Valorant. And I think part of the problem too is like, this was like a whole turnkey event series that just happened basically out of nowhere. Like Valorant dropped, a lot of the pros came over from Counter-Strike. Like they're used to things being a certain way. They're top tier organizations. They come in. So if one little thing isn't right, like you're going to hear about it.
Right.
So 3 months, I think, is long. I think 3 months is excessive. I imagine after a month, they'll do a review of the case and it might get, for good behavior or whatever, like it may get stripped away. I don't know. This one is crazy because that's the other thing too, is it stalled the broadcast for over an hour.
Yes.
While this was happening, which is horrible.
That's my biggest issue. Like if I'm a player, I have been a player and an organizer, so I can understand the point of the player's perspective where it's like, hey, like we don't feel like this is fair, but also knowing the knowledge that I have, I would play that match and dispute it later than delay the whole broadcast for an hour. Because here's the thing, if you play that match and you win, then you can just go on social media and be like, hey, look, we beat this team. This team's clearly nothing to us. We beat them. We had high ping. This is what was going on. But if you lose, you can have it like, hey, that's where you make awareness. What I don't like to see is one party being villainized.
I gotta jump in there. That's a rough spot as an organization. When you use the excuse afterwards, when you make it aware after the fact, after losing the match, that just makes you look like you're just crying for no reason. And
right? No. Bring it up. Okay. I should rephrase it. Bring it up to the organizers before the game. Don't delay the broadcast for an hour, because you're not only delaying the broadcast for an hour, but you're also delaying the viewers watching the broadcast and your fans watching the broadcast for an hour. Yeah. Bring it up and just look, if I understand there's a lot of money on the line, but you can use it as a prime example. You can use it as a prime example of, hey, this is the problem we have going on. This is the effect of that problem. Let's fix it in the future. Because all of this referee has to say, well, if it's possibly, because we didn't see the rule book. We don't know what the rule book has. So they could have chose the server selection incorrectly the first time, or they could have done it incorrectly the second time. It's just a tough one, man. I just don't think you delay the broadcast for an hour. If you know it's not going to be fixed, you get your team down. You're going to have to play the match anyway. Now your coach is banned for 3 months because you delayed the broadcast. You can avoid a lot of these things. You can avoid a lot of these things if you bring it up to them before, you play your match, and you talk about it after. I think that's the way. And it sucks. And if they lose, you can use the excuse, they're just complaining about internet. It's because their internet, blah, 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 blah. They're just being babies. No, but you show the effect at the end of the day. You don't sit there and fight with them for an hour, and then Riot has to get involved, and it causes this whole... Now it's a PR nightmare because... Yep. I mean, I'm almost on the side of Nerd Street where like, well, if it's genuinely in the rules and this is how they select servers, then you should have just been playing your match this whole time. Mm-hmm. And now I have to sit here for an extra hour of my day when I have a fee that I charge as a broadcaster, and I'm going to get paid that fee whether I'm here an hour later or an hour earlier, Like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, just one last kind of like, topic to kind of put on top of this, like having worked the Halo Championship Series, there was one team in particular. It happened every series they were on main stage. If they won the match, they would immediately call for the next match to start. If they lost the previous match, they would not even request a restroom break. They would just get up away from their stations and go like leave the main stage, claiming that they were using a restroom break. And there are many times that like the other team is like, what is up? Like they're trying to ice us. They're obviously taking a break to talk with their coach to go over the matches. Like but within the rules of the HCS, like these players were allowed to go to a restroom
like
break in between rounds.
Like
yeah. So yeah, it's tricky because you want like I want to back Nerd Street Gamers so long as everything was to the T. But as soon as one thing is a little off, then you have to kind of side with the team because their claims are technically correct, and obviously, like this is a high level play, so it's rough, man. There really are no winners here. That's the thing.
None. No,
there are no winners.
Nope. No, but we're gonna go ahead and move on. We have the CDL news and predictions. Okay, there was a lot of news happening over these last 2 weeks at the CDL that we were able to talk about some of it. Obviously, the new update just came out. We're going to go ahead and start with Challengers. Challengers number 11 has been canceled, not delay, canceled. The Challenger scene is deciding to give these players a break over the Easter weekend. So Challengers number 11 is not happening. And then we have, I got to pull it up because it's a lot of reading I got to do. We have I'm just going to go over, we have the new update that just came out, a bunch of stuff that came out. Miami Strike is a new map. It's just a really condensed version of Miami with some stuff added in the middle. I think it plays pretty well. I'd be curious to see what happens moving forward. But we're going to go ahead and just talk about the nerfs and the buffs, whether for the assault rifles and the submachine guns. You have the Krig 6, improved visibility while firing an ADS, complete turning pass on weapon accuracy, weapon movement, and visual clarity while firing with any optic attachment. Address instances where the weapon feeling floaty when firing. Holy cannoli. Address the instances of weapon feeling floaty when firing for a prolonged amount of time. So basically, they just made the Krig a little bit more stable visually. I don't know how I feel about that. I felt like the Krig was fine. I mean, I do understand. I use the Krig. That's what I use when I play. I don't want to say it felt inconsistent, but I guess I could see that they had to fix something. I felt like it was fine. The FFAR increased bullet speed by 12.8%. FFAR was super overpowered at the beginning of the year. However, I don't feel like this changes the FFAR too much. I feel like the big issue with it right now is damage over distance and visual recoil. La Groza increased the maximum range by 40%. I feel like that actually is a big deal. People might start picking up the Groza. Attachments, complete tuning pass on all muzzle and underbarrel attachments that affect recoil on assault rifles. I think this might fix a lot of the assault rifle balancing that people have been crying out for. People have been saying that they shoot too straight, they're too much of a laser. So they're going in and they're fixing some of the attachments that you put on it. Because if you guys do not know how Cold War works similar to Modern Warfare, where everything increases and decreases by a certain percentage when you start putting in attachments of guns. So they did a complete pass over the attachments of the muzzles and barrels on the assault rifles, maybe balance out the weapon. I know there's a lot of people, because of this, wanting the XM4 to come back. I still don't think that's going to happen. There's still a little bit of whispers about the QBZ being GA'd. I think that's also a mistake. I think a 2AR meta is fantastic to watch. Submachine guns, the Milano. Okay. Let me tell you a little story before I get into the Milano. I had a dream. This sounds dumb, but I had a dream before the update dropped and before the patch notes came out. The night before, I woke up and I called my buddy Phantom Snake on Discord. I was like, hey, had a dream. The Milano is going to be overpowered. I don't know what it is. I just think, and then we started using the Milano and it was dog water. It was not good. 3 hours later, the update drops. Patch notes come out. Listen to this. Milano. Increased mid-range damage by 10%. Increased mid-range damage range. So not only does it increase the damage, but increases the amount of like what's considered mid-range damage by 33%. Increased sprint outspeed by 14.2%, increased raise speed by 11%, and increased ADS speed. I used it after this patch drop. Dude, it's so good. I put a sight on it. I can just challenge from across the map. The KSP, which is G8, increased ballistic speed by 32%, reduced burst delay by 20%. So that's pretty... So it's kind of the same. AK-74U, which is pretty significant, reduced accuracy with prolonging fire, reduced muzzle velocity by 23.4%. So maybe I think they're trying to make it a little bit more skillful to use. You're going to have to lead your shot a little bit from players getting further away. LC-10, reduced max damage by 41%, slightly reduced mid-range damage, decreased the amount of range, which is considered mid-range, and MAC-10 modified bullet pattern, slightly more horizontal. So recoil's a little bit horizontal more. There's that. The top, so stage 2 is officially complete for Elite series. I believe in North America and Europe. Let me double check. Yep. We have E-Star finishing first, not related to West-Star. Fantastic Four finishing second. Subliners Academy in third. Built by Gamers fourth. UT Crew in fifth. And West-Star tied for fifth. HYXR is out. They're going to have to start playing Challenger Cup again. And Aerial Arise is out. So are they. They actually went 0-7, so not any success there. And EU, we have Passion first, Connect second, Elite 2 third, Los Galacticos. All of these teams are tied for second. We have 4 teams that went 4-3. And then we have Orglis at fifth, which is 3-4, and Team Moon also tied at fifth, 3-4. We have 67K out playing Challengers and Train Hard Esport out and playing Challengers. Woo! Okay, that was a lot. Let's go ahead and move into the best time of the day, which is CDL predictions and reviewing basically just what happened over the week. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. Boom.
Not good. Not good, basically.
Not good. Our pick'ems, so we both predicted 6 matches correct, and we had a couple of perfect scores correct as well. We're going to go over here. This is your matches from this last week. They were pretty interesting. Honestly, I think we're pretty much just in a league now where anything can go right or wrong for any of these teams. So we started off the weekend on Thursday, obviously, so part of the week, with Paris losing to Dallas 1-3. We had that match correct. Chicago losing to Minnesota 3-0. Minnesota acquiring that player Insight playing out of their minds. Also, I think this is one of Optic's worst ever weeks that they've had. I believe we'll talk about that more later after we talk about the Florida match. We have London versus 100 Thieves. I had 100 Thieves improving. You did not. This is where you had bested me. London 3-1 over LA Thieves. London has made massive improvements. They're still last in the standings. But I think it's just kind of one of those things. It's super hard to climb into the standings, especially they're going to have to win consistently for a little bit. LAG in New York played on Friday. That was 3-1 New York. We predicted that. We actually predicted a 3-0, I believe. No, we predicted 3-1. Yep. And then London and New York. I thought this was going to go to a game 5. Did you as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We both thought this was going to go to a game 5, but New York ended up taking it 3-1, showing a little bit more dominance. New York starting to show a little bit of consistency, which is what I like to see from a player like Clayster. LA Thieves versus Atlanta FaZe. We just didn't bet against Atlanta at all. We predicted this one exactly correct, 3-0 for Atlanta. Toronto versus LAG. We got this one exactly correct too. We got Toronto 3-2 over LAG. And this is where the boys stepped up, baby. Smacking Paris into another dimension. Wasn't even close. The first hard point was close for like 30 seconds. I told you. You said, oh, yeah, I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to reinstate my faith with Paris. And what I said that was a big mistake, Mike. Because Seattle Surge are coming out hot, and they did. The boys look great. Woo, woo, woo. They look good. That's a new team, man. I'm telling you, it's a new team. Pristini's playing consistently, looking good. Dallas and Rocker. We had Dallas smacking the doo-doo out of Minnesota. We didn't think Minnesota was going to be that consistent. They played really well the week before this. However, still lost their match. But Minnesota came out super hot, won both of their matches, once against Optic and once against Dallas. So Minnesota possibly turning around. I think Attach has a lot more leverage on the map now. Insight is allowing Attach to really do what Attach used to be able to do, especially in Search and Destroy. I think that's what makes this Minnesota roster so strong. And then the final match of the weekend, we thought this was going to be close. However, Florida said, no way. We're going to stop you. We're going to stop you on checkmate control, and it's not even going to look fun. Chicago played bad, man. To wrap up the discussion on this week, I think this is the week of Chicago not playing well. I feel like every year Optic has one weekend, whether it was, or you could say Huntsman last year, but any team ran by Hector Rodriguez always has a bad weekend. Period. Mm-hmm. They're always a team where they get upset. They're not winning matches they're supposed to be winning. And depending on the year and depending on the game, they do one of two things. They either stay that way for the rest of the year and someone leaves, or they get phenomenally better, and by the time playoffs comes around, you're thinking they're the best team in the game. However, Atlanta is the best team in the game, without a doubt, hands down.
Coming off this weekend, it's crazy to me. To put it in simplistic terms, Optic is a sell right now. I don't have a lot of faith in them. Maybe it was just a bad weekend, but more importantly, bye Minnesota. What the heck? I literally, for weeks on end, this team is amazing. They're just not performing right. You got to watch out for them. And then this past week is the one I'm like, I'm not really I'm not on the boat anymore. Minnesota's not doing that great. I'm going to, and then they come out and just blow everybody out of the water. Insane to me. That Minnesota performed as well. And I feel like Minnesota and Paris are like those two teams that I'm like always in the back of my mind. I'm like, these guys are going to do really well. And then they don't. Or I predict them to do really well. And then they do. And then they don't. They're literally 50-50. It's so crazy. They either do really, really good and they have upsets, or they do kind of mediocre and just kind of lose, what should be close games.
Right. Yeah, no, disappointing stuff from Optic, really undisappointing stuff from Minnesota. Glad to see those two teams. Glad to see the one team turn it around. Seattle, again, big ups. But let's go ahead and move on to next week. We're going to do run through predictions real quick. First match of the weekend, we have Florida versus Dallas. Shoot, man, this should be hard.
It should be hard.
Every time Dallas loses, my opinion is they pick back up. I don't know what it is about the grind. I feel like Illy, Shotzi, and Hook just kind of have something to prove, and then you have Crimsix there being a very vocal leader. I have Dallas winning this 3-1. I have them being pretty dominant.
That's so tricky because that's what my heart tells me, but I have Dallas winning at 3-2. I want to see Florida continue their momentum from last week and play really well. I think it's either going to be a 3-1 or it's going to be a super, super tight series. So I have Dallas 3-2.
All right. You have Dallas 3-2. We'll see how it goes. Seattle versus Optic, which is our second match. Here's the thing. I'm a big proponent of play styles. Play styles work, and I don't feel like Seattle has the play style that will take down this Optic squad. I feel I have Optic winning 3-1. So not much faith in the boys, but I think it's going to be a play style matchup that is not going to suit I think Envoy's too good for Pristini, man. That's really what it is.
What's interesting is I stalled. I put all my other predictions in. I have yet to hit that save predictions button. I'm sticking with everything else except for this matchup. I didn't put an actual prediction in because I honestly feel like Seattle could take the series pending Optic doesn't recoup from last week. And I'm like, well, Alex is going to predict Seattle. I always have to go against Seattle just to kind of piss off Alex. Like I have to. But now hearing you go for Optic, I'm like, do I make the switch? I'm not sure. Like I feel like they only played one game last week, right? Yes. Seattle only played one game.
They played Paris.
Week. Yes, and Optic played 2, and they got horribly stomped in both.
But
of them, so
last time Optic played Paris, they did the same thing to them.
Yeah.
I think this is good. Here, I'm not going to do this very often, and I hope Seattle wins. I hope my pick'em is 100% wrong when it comes to this, but Looney and Pristini, there's no shot they're going to take down some. They're not going to take out Scump and Envoy. I think Looney could outgun Scump. Pristini could outgun Scump, but with Envoy and Scump running around the map after losing two really bad matches this last weekend, I feel like it's not going to happen again. They've been playing a lot more this week than they had the previous. Something's telling me, man, Chicago's going to come out with a fire. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am dead wrong, but I got Seattle losing this pretty hard.
Tell you what, it popped on my head. I'm going to go with my gut feeling. I'm going to say Seattle's going to win it 3-2.
Oh, I'll be so upset if you're right.
At the 1 week that I predict Seattle to win, and I get the point off of it.
All right, now we have London versus Toronto. I think this is gonna be way closer than people think. I have London winning 3-2, but I do have London winning.
I have London winning, but 3-1. I don't know that it's going to be as close. I feel like Toronto is like that solid mid-pack team. London's on the rise. I got to root for the theoretical underdog, even though London performed really well last week. So I say 3-1.
Fair enough. Then we have LAG versus Atlanta. I do have LAG taking a map, not winning, just taking a map. I feel like this is going to be Atlanta's, I believe, 12th map win in a row. 12th series win in a row. 3-1. I do have a map being taken, though.
I have this is my, I know we have the Mountain Dew Game Fuel marquee match of the night. I feel like this Atlanta FaZe versus LA Gorillas is going to be your Easter match of the weekend, in that we're going to have a big old goose egg 3-0 for Atlanta FaZe. Surprisingly, the only 3-0 I have predicted for this weekend, but I think that there's no way. FaZe is just too strong. They're the top of the ladder. I don't even think they're going to get a game.
Then we have Paris versus Florida. Ooh, I want to hear it from you first, because you have some crazy faith in Paris after watching what happened to him last week. What do you think?
Yeah, I've had consistent faith for Paris. I've correctly predicted down to the match round a lot of their upsets they've had so far this season. I think this is going to be a close series, but I have it Florida taking it 3-2, primarily because Florida has a ton of confidence coming off of last week. They had some really good series. They beat Optic 3-0. I feel like Mutineers they're just going to perform really well. It's going to be a close series, but Paris, again, this is the one time it's probably going to be a 3-1 for Paris, and I'm going to beat myself up because I put all this faith in them, and then the time when it counts, I pull it back out. I cash out. So 4-3.
I have a 3-2 as well. The thing is I think Paris is going to win. That's the thing. I think Paris is going to take this 3-2. So me having more faith in this Paris squad than good old Mike himself. Hopefully all right, this should be a slapper. And by slapper, I mean, as I always have Seattle winning one match a week. And I think Seattle's going to slap the doggy doo-doo out of Minnesota. I think they're going to teach them a fat old man lesson and just be like, look, insight, you can run around the map, against Optic. You can run around the map against Dallas, but you cannot run around the map against us because we have Gunless and the turret Octane. I don't feel like Insight's going to be able to make many moves against Seattle. That's bias, but I also think it's fact. I have Seattle winning 3-1, losing the control.
Interesting. I also have a prediction for 3-1 for Minnesota because I can't back
I hate Minnesota.
Minnesota, I've talked about it the last couple of weeks. I'm like, there's this team. They're going to show up. They're going to perform. Seattle, even though I have them beating Optic earlier in this week, I just don't know if Minnesota is clicking again on all cylinders. It's going to be a tough matchup for Seattle. So I have it as 3-1, but I could see Seattle starting that climb, starting to come up. I just don't know that I have enough off of one game
right
from last week to really kind of like put that stock there.
Right. We have New York Slobliners versus Toronto Ultra. This is, I believe, my only 3-0 for New York.
Interesting. I've been singing the praises of New York Subliners all season long. I think they're a great team once they become a little more consistent. Like you were saying, like last week, kind of showing that consistency. Clayster kind of whipping the boys into shape. I think they're going to do phenomenal. Definitely a top 3 team. I actually have it 3-1 for Subliners beating Toronto. I have to give a game to Toronto. I think they're going to show up, but Subliners, they've just keep the steamroll going.
We have Atlanta FaZe versus London. Atlanta 3-1.
3-1. Simple enough.
Yep, 3-1. Simple enough. I feel like if Atlanta's going to lose any map, it's going to be the first hard point, and I think it's just going to be because they don't expect London to come out hot. That's it.
Yeah.
The LA Derby, the rematch from Stage 1 finals. LA Gorillas versus LA Thieves. Last time LA Gorillas did win this. Okay. Hear me out. LA Thieves is going to win this 3-2.
Whoa, really?
I don't know why. I saw this match and I was like, there's no way to lose to another LA team twice in a row. So I got to pick LA Thieves. That's the only math equation I did in my head when picking this.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times those gut predictions are you can't refute them. You got to go with them. I have LA Gorillas beating LA Thieves 3-1. Same as with last week. It wasn't that I was predicting the other teams to beat Los Angeles Thieves as much as it was they were just going to perform well.
Right.
It's like putting negative faith in the team. So they had LA Thieves had a rough go of it last week. Yep. They could come out stronger. It depends on if they able to recruit or not, but I feel like they're just not going to perform as well. And so I have Gorillas winning 3-1.
Okay. And the last, your Game Fuel marquee match of Sunday should be a slapper doodle bob. Hear me out. Hear me out. Both these teams got beat by Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Optic lost two matches in a row to two teams that were coming off the bench very, very hot. These two teams have played before, and Optic barely lost to Search and Destroy in Game 5. I think they're going to win the Game 5. I think it's going to be 3-2 for Optic over Dallas.
Oh, this one's rough. This one's rough for me personally because I've been cheering Dallas all season long. It's easy to back the previous winner. I think this series it's either going to be a really close series or it's going to be
I agree.
a mollywhopping.
I agree.
I have Dallas winning 3-1. That's not to say that Optic isn't going to perform better than they did last week, but funny enough, as it sits right now, I have Optic losing both of their matches this week based off of their performance from last week. So I have them Seattle beating Optic 3-2, and now I have Dallas beating Optic 3-1. It could be a 3-2 if the true form Optic shows up, but I have it 3-1 for Dallas. I just feel like they're gonna perform way better than they did last week.
Fair enough. All right, we're gonna go ahead. Oh wait, here's the score. We both got 6 matches predicted correctly. 2 or 3 perfectly correct. I forget what it was, but I have 32 total matches predicted, and you have 34. So I'm still down by 2. However, this week, if it all plays out right, I could be there. I caught up the week previous to that, so we'll see.
I'm gonna love it if the 2 Seattle games are the one that don't do it for you. If they and we kind of push on everything else, and it comes down to those 2 Seattle games, and that's what keeps me ahead in the league.
I don't know why you're making fun of me, but we're gonna keep moving on. Is CS:GO a sinking ship? This is something that you brought up, and I read this and I was like, okay, I'll hear him out.
You know, it's rough. As an old dog like me, Counter-Strike's been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
It will hopefully be around forever. You know, I think that there's a bunch of factors that are happening here right now. Obviously, the pandemic has not done very well for esports in general.
Right.
Like, the biggest thing the pandemic has done has showed light on the smaller or maybe not as popular, you know, bigger name titles. We're seeing like new games that are coming out. We're seeing, you know, all this kind of like hype or rediscovery of games that people weren't playing or even knew there was a competitive scene behind. And Valorant is kind of one of those, you know, having launched in beta, the hype behind the Twitch drops to get into the beta, like all the former, you know, all the pros that are, you know, were hyping up the game and playing it. Obviously, the backing of Riot. There was this weird, there's like surge of like Valorant is going to be the future. Like the future's now old man. And then it just kind of like stalled out and then it dipped a little bit. But now that we actually have, you know, true online competitive Valorant play with all these big name teams and orgs, right. Counter-Strike seems like they've been taking a little bit of a back seat. Like viewership has kind of been waning back and forth. The other thing specifically I wanted to talk about is, you know, teams and players that are jumping ship. Like we're already seeing it we've seen it from Counter-Strike. We've seen it from Overwatch League. We're seeing it from other competitive titles as well. There was a statement released earlier this week, or last week, I should say, I believe, from Cloud9. They're officially taking a pause with their Counter-Strike team. Primarily, they're not saying like we're dropping out, like we're not doing anything with Counter-Strike anymore. It's just that the pandemic has caused a lot of issues. We can't get our players safely together. We'd rather just kind of take a break and wait for things to kind of reformulate towards the next tournament season here for us to get everything together. The other thing as well, Counter-Strike has had a long history with all female teams competing. Specifically, if you go back to the Electronic Sports World Cup, ESWC, one of their big features was they always had a female-only Counter-Strike tournament.
Right.
Valorant, we're already seeing all female rosters filled. We're seeing these huge orgs, you know, separate leagues, but then also like, you know, cross promotion leagues and things that are happening. And I just feel like there's so much new happening with Valorant that Counter-Strike, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a sinking ship, but like the pandemic hasn't done any favors. We didn't get that super hype crowd at Katowice. We aren't getting these majors. And now you're seeing teams with Cloud9 taking a break. We're hearing rumors of reps from Australis saying like, hey, maybe we should focus more on Valorant than Counter-Strike. Like when you have some of the top teams in the league,
especially a team like Australis.
Yeah, when you're hearing like these rumors and things kind of like being passed around, you're like, okay, well, is this, you know, are we just waiting for Riot Games to officially, you know, push Valorant with in-studio events, with live events, like once things are safe and coming back? Like, Counter-Strike is still huge and popular and people are competing, but it's a rough look at it right now. And I don't know what the future holds, but like we also have this weird thing where it's like, okay, Counter-Strike is here, Valorant is here, a bunch of pros leave to go to Valorant. Right. So now it's like, okay, we're kind of evening up. And as a prospective player, if you're on the come up, like if you're competing in the amateur level and you're looking at the two of them, you're like, well, it looks like there's more future in Valorant. So rather than fill the spot of all the pros that have left, I'm just going to try and follow in their footsteps and gain my spot and compete there. It's a weird it's like a weird situation right now between both of them.
Yeah. I've had the feeling, even before the whole pandemic, I had the feeling that CS:GO Esports was on a bit of a decline because before the pandemic, we were experiencing oversaturation of the esport itself. was super hard to keep up with all the events. And then because of all the events, not all of your favorite teams were at all of the events. There was a few majors a year that would happen, and that's why everyone would really watch those majors over another one. So I think, I mean, it's hard to ignore Riot's involvement and how much they support a game. I mean, Valve's always just kind of taken like a back seat to CSGO and competitive. It's really community driven. You could arguably say it's the ultimate grassroots esport, because at the end of the day, you don't really have Valve working on the esport program. But we've seen what Riot has done before with an esport, and what they still continue to do with both of their A-tier esports now, S-tier esports. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to argue with you. I mean, Cloud9 is a flagship of CSGO competitive, in the competitive scene, but yeah, it makes sense. I feel like there's a couple of, I don't feel like CSGO is going to go anywhere, but I think it's going to slowly whittle its way down into more of like the elite esports follower, like will know more about CSGO than Valorant. So I do see Valorant taking kind of the limelight when it comes to PC FPS, or tactical PC FPS, I should say. So we'll see. We'll see how Valorant continues to grow, and we'll see what CSGO's community reacts. I would say how Valve reacts, but I don't think they're going to. If anything, they'll make another game.
Yeah, that's a very interesting aspect as well. You know, with the backing of the actual publisher itself, the publisher is working directly with the community, with the teams, with the players, with the broadcasts, with everything. And Valve is just kind of like, okay, here's our blessing. Go forth and do what needs to be done. So, I to answer the question that I posed, is CSGO a sinking ship?
Yes.
I think there are some leaks. I think there are some leaks that can be easily plugged,
right?
But it's a matter of how quickly they respond to them,
right? Yep, yeah. It's going to be community driven too, so I'll be interested to see the initiative of a lot of these event organizers step up, and when events do come back, I'm interested to see how they handle that. Hopefully, we don't get oversaturation again. Future of esports media, hit me with it.
Yeah, so this is interesting to me. We talked a little bit before, obviously, with ESPN dropping their whole esports team and kind of providing more coverage. Like, we thought, like, you know, as somebody back in the day that was a part of gotfrag.com, that actually its tagline was the ESPN of video games. Like, that was the future, right? Like, we would be the ESPN of this. Like, this is the Michael Jordan of Counter-Strike. This is blah, blah, blah. And then, like, now that bubble's kind of popped, it's you know, there's a lot of independent news coverage out there. You know, obviously we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
But there were two specific organizations that I wanted to talk about that I think are kind of start shaping things a little bit more, kind of a different angle that we're seeing before. So the first one I want to bring up is actually, it's just esports. So esports.gg is the website. They have the Twitter handle @esports. They announced their project a few months ago, but now the website is officially up and running. This is backed by personalities such as like Puckett, who you might know from MLG back in the day, or even an analyst for Overwatch. They have Frodan, who's worked at Twitch, done a lot with Hearthstone and a bunch of other like hosting and commentary within esports, and Megiddo, who does League of Legends coverage and is also part of the Counter-Strike podcast as well. Right. A lot of big names. Yeah. You know, they made the announcement, go to the website, especially having the Twitter handle just @esports, I think is huge, because now from, you know, a search engine standpoint, if you just Google esports, or if you go on a Twitter and look up esports, it should be one of the top things that comes up. So their whole premise is that they have professionals that work within the industry that are not only covering like their own sector of esports, the things that they have, but also providing input and analysis and things, you know, for the bigger news topics. Yeah. Which you know, is going to be great. You know, I can't imagine who else they're going to have on board, or the big stories and things they're going to cover it, and breaks that they're going to have. So definitely keep an eye out on them. Again, on Twitter @esports, and their website is esports.gg. Very simple, very straightforward. Yeah. The other one, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, for someone like, because I know Chris Puckett, with his involvement with MLG back in the day, he announced that he was going to leave the Overwatch League almost a year ago, it seems like, because I believe he moved out of the state that they were running their matches. So it's interesting to see a personality like him pick up kind of where he left off and doing reporting. And he has not aged a day. He looks the same from 2004 on. 2004 or 5 on. So it's good to see experienced analysts and people that are passionate about the world kind of form their own thing. And like you said, if you Google esports, they should be the first thing that pops up now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one, this was announced a few weeks ago, but again, we've kind of been like, we've had guests and covering other topics, is Upcomer. So Upcomer was kind of this like secret project, like a lot of like esports, like media representatives were kind of like, oh, I have this new thing I'm working on. I can't wait to announce it. And it was like months and months of secrecy. Finally got announced. It is under the title of Upcomer. Upcomer, again, like some really, really big names behind it. So like Fion on Fire, who previously you've seen do tons of League of Legends coverage, but then also too was one of those head members of ESPN Esports when it was around. Colin McNeil, previously from Score Esports. I've watched a ton of their videos. Yep. Listened to a lot of his takes on Twitter and things like that, like very, very finger on the pulse. And then Amanda Stevens, who is primarily known from the fighting game community, but working a lot for like inclusivity and, you know, kind of like those like, you know, those groups that don't really know if they have a place within esports, really kind of like taking the flag and carrying it and making it more welcome for everybody. So Upcomer's premise is a lot more interesting. And I personally, I'm a big fan of it. It's not just esports coverage, like here's the breaking news, but it's also like taking a look back and kind of archiving like, hey, you know, here's a really big matchup, or here's a story that people may not be aware of because it happened in 2007. Like newer fans of esports, it's a way to not only like, okay, here's the breaking news, what's going on, what's happening, but also like, yeah, exactly. Here's an editorial piece about, you know, something that's different. Here's you know, match analysis from an event that happened a decade ago that really formed the shape of, you know, meta and things that are happening. So yeah, I really feel like between esports.gg is how I refer to them. So esports.gg and Upcomer, we're seeing like this kind of collapse, this void that ESPN Esports kind of left and cratered. Like obviously you still have like Dexerto and you have like all these organizations out there that are still running strong and covering news, but like these two coming, basically launching at the same time, I think are going to do wonders for the scene. It's going to be incredible to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I'll obviously like to see more news more esports, especially different esports. Sounds like they're going to cover a lot of the things that not everybody covers. We just had Lefty B say LC10 just made an appearance in COD scrims. All GAs are being thrown out the window. Thank goodness. I would like to see all GAs kind of be reconsidered. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and start rolling out into our upcoming events. Like I said, I'm super glad the media scene is stepping up, filling that void, because when esports and ESPN kind of took a dip, it kind of almost seemed delegitimizing kind of what we do, but it's nice to see that we have other forms. But let's go ahead. What event do you have for me? And this is an event that we've been talking about and should continue to talk about. I'm gonna full screen it.
This is one I've been telling you guys for the last couple of weeks. If you haven't tuned in or for whatever reason haven't seen it on Twitter, good friend Will English IV is holding his own Overwatch Invitational. He's done this previously before. I've mentioned Will many times on the show. Does a lot within the fighting game community. You know, big personality as far as broadcasts and doing different events and things like that. But the next Invitational is coming up. They're almost capped out at 32 teams. The crazy thing about this event is it's completely grassroots. It's all out of the mind of Will English. He's putting this on for the community. And the event has been rescheduled and reformatted to really accommodate to the teams competing in other events and things like that. But everything is locked in now. Almost the 32 team cap. And there's even talks, if they get over 32 teams, they're actually going to do a kind of elimination round for those teams that signed up late. So very, very, very exciting. Obviously, Overwatch is like, we're kind of in limbo right now. We're waiting for Overwatch 2. We're waiting for the next series of Overwatch League. So very, very much, if you guys go follow Will on Twitter, it's at Will English IV for Will English IV. You can find more about this event. Completely community ran, community organized. Ignited.gg came on as a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a lot more news as far as like commentators and different things like that. But even if you guys are not competing, I highly suggest April 8th through April 11th. A lot of good action for you guys to come forward. I would love to possibly next week. I'm going to reach out to Will and see about maybe having him on.
You might not have to reach out to Will because Will's in the chat. He said, by the way, live update. So he must be typing something vigorously.
We're getting the news straight from the sport. So forget Upcomer, forget esports.gg. We're getting the news live.
Yeah, they suck. I'm just kidding. While Will throws in that update, we'll go ahead and leave this on the screen. Never mind. EU version will be launching as well.
Wow. Oh,
I like it. That's stuff I like to see. I like to see players from everywhere play every game. And they're at 35 teams.
35 teams currently. So not only did they meet that cap, going a little bit above and beyond. I'm telling you guys, like this event is going to be amazing. Even just from a spectator standpoint, you guys got to watch. Like, how many times have true grassroots events really gotten this much hype? This is incredible to see.
It's good to see, man. It's proof in the pudding that like, hey, grassroots can still do it. If you're excited about something, if you're passionate about something, do it. Make it happen. This is a perfect example. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the final event. I'm gonna be watching the CDL this weekend, and this weekend is our last chance qualifier for the Halo 5 $1,000 Invitational. But we had Renegade, so we have a lot of good teams signed up. So Renegade's already qualified. We have Frosty playing in this next one. And there is possibly some more personalities joining the group in the Discord. So if you guys have not, go to LFTGofficial.com. Go ahead and click on that events tab. You can join our Halo or our Call of Duty Discord that we have. But yeah, you can watch that right here. Be 2v2. We start at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and it takes us 2 hours to get through about 18 teams.
That's not bad.
No, it's not. It's a really easy day.
Not bad at all.
That includes grand finals.
It's incredible how well tournaments run when everybody has their own setup instead of waiting for setups to become available.
Our first one lasted like 4 hours, 5 hours with less teams. And now it's just like everyone in the Discord's like, oh yeah, no, I'll just start my match. I'm like, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
There is one last piece of event news that I wanted to share. Just wanted to show you guys. I don't know if you noticed, but I am wearing my Frosty Fosties online t-shirt. You guys remember, funny enough, we're doing a lot of events with that. Did commentary for Windjammers.
Mm-hmm.
English also did the Windjammers 2 beta tournament when that came out as well. But I got a very special item in the mail this past week from Frosty Fosties that I wanted to show you guys. So I go out to my mail, not really expecting anything, and I get a package. It's got this black bag inside of it. I'm like, okay, this is cool. What is this? I open it up. It is a community medal.
Oh, that's sick.
From working Frosty Fostings online. It's got my name on the back, says invaluable staff. Super, super cool. So Frosty Fostings, a lot of events within the fighting game community, what they do is they have a staff raffle at the end of the show, and they also give out community awards to different staff members who really go above and beyond. This was an online event. Not only did all the players get medals, but they also sent out the staff medals as per usual.
I like that.
So, yeah, I just want to give a shout out to those guys.
Frosty Fostings is another prime example of being able to run a great event online.
That was the craziest thing. Receiving this makes me feel more like it was an in-person event than an online event. Like, they had the Artist Alley Discord. Right. They had all the giveaways. Social media was on point. That was such an incredible event. And, like, if live events don't happen until, next year, pending whatever happens, like, I'm totally cool with more events taking that model and kind of following their lead. It was just super cool.
That's sick. Yeah, I love to see stuff like that. But you know what time it is.
Time to pray at the altar that is the Minnesota Rock Core to either continue
hope they eat
their
shit
streak.
against Seattle. I hope. I just hope bad things happen to their controllers, their computers.
Wow.
I hope it's like, oh yeah, no, we can't play, so we forfeit, because they'll probably win if they don't. Anyway, it's time to turn up the music just a little bit as I scoot a little bit closer into this microphone. Whisper in some ears. I want to say, Lefty B, thank you for showing up, talking about some Call of Duty. Will English, the fourth, of course, always showing love. Congratulations on the success of your fantastic Overwatch Invitational series, Invitational. And I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Anyone that watches the video back, I know we have a couple of people watching the video back right now. Thank you so much. Don't forget to go to LFTGofficial.com. Check out our merch. Go to our Discords. I've been your host, Refresh, and sitting next to me always kind of, but not really is.
Mohawk Mike, excited to see you guys next week. Let's hope nothing else explodes in the internet.
Episode 28.
Play their matches.
Oh, wait, is next week the CDL show?
Are we that? No. No, it can't be.
Right? We're looking it up.
There's gotta be another week. There's 4 weeks, right?
Yeah, well, it's 3 weeks of play and then 4 weeks of the fourth week's the major.
Oh.
Yeah, April 7th through 10th is a major. I didn't even know. It's happened so fast.
That's so insane to me. I thought we had another week before. So I don't know.
Well,
we'll have to reach out and see about maybe having a Lefty on the show. Then I would love to have Will English on the show next week to promote the Overwatch Invitational, and I would also like to have Lefty.
Maybe we can make it a two-parter.
I'm kind of dig it. I could go for that. So we'll see. We'll see what we can work out.
I'm ready to yell about predictions. Hey, that means this. Oh, Seattle has to win this week, because if Seattle wins one this week, they start out winners, and that's guaranteed dollars, baby. That's all. Mm-hmm. I need Seattle to rake in that dough, and then you know what, Seattle. Wait, I got one more thing. All right, Seattle, listen. You're a local team. Tweet something about the Seattle Sounders. Tweet something about the Seattle Seahawks. The Mariners are doing okay. You use your local market. Promote your team. This goes for all CDL teams. I know you're a worldwide thing. Everybody in the world should be a fan, but use your local market. Holy moly. If the Seattle Seahawks go to the playoffs again this year and then they don't tweet about the games, just use them. Use them for clout. God, we care. I was driving down the road the other day wearing my Seattle Surge hat. Some 8-year-old pointed at me and said, "That's a Seattle Surge hat." And I was like, "You're damn right, son." And then I drove away. That was a very proud moment. Seattle cares. They look up. They care about their indoor soccer team. Who cares about the indoor soccer teams? Nobody! Except for Seattle. Use your local market. Reach out to many of your local breweries. Get sponsored by a beer company. Alright. Thank you for watching.
And with that, goodbye. Have a good week.
Have a good week.
End rant.